Despite being left without a single landmark in the dark, dense forest, my phone quietly bid me farewell with its last percent of battery. Darkness enveloped me like a shroud, and my footsteps sounded like a verdict. I wandered aimlessly with no clue where to go. The foliage seemed like sinister hands reaching out to me, and the branches scratched at me like ghosts. Every step brought more anxiety, and the sounds of the nocturnal forest echoed like piercing cries. At one point, it seemed like I heard whispers and rustling in the bushes, but when I turned around, there was nothing to be seen but blackness. Eventually, as twilight turned into night, I stumbled upon a cabin nestled among the trees. It looked old and abandoned, but in my situation, I was grateful for any shelter. Stepping inside, I found the cabin empty, save for some old, dusty furniture. Exhausted, I decided to lay down and sleep on the old bed. But peace eluded me. My gaze fell upon the portraits hanging on the walls. The faces in them seemed sinister, as if they were watching me from their frames. I tried to shake off my irrational thoughts, but they continued to haunt me. The hours dragged on like an eternity, and I began to despair. Finally, exhaustion took over, and I fell asleep from sheer fatigue. In the morning, I was awakened by bright sunlight streaming through the old windows. Confused, I glanced at the walls and realized that instead of portraits, there were windows. My vague nightmares were a thing of the past, and I felt alive again. Freed from fear, I left the cabin, eagerly embracing the light of day and hoping for rescue from this ominous. One late evening, the three of us were wandering aimlessly when Alec mentioned wanting to go to Pipe Peck to see a house that was up for sale. Once in the car, Alec described it as an old, dilapidated mansion built in Italian style, boasting 26 fireplaces, once inhabited by monks, but now abandoned. The mansion sat on 50 acres of land with access to beautiful terraces. I grew nervous. The idea didn't sit well with me. Nighttime wasn't the right time to inspect a house, and I was sure Alec was more drawn to the adventure than the mansion itself. We veered off the road and parked near the forest at the back of the mansion. It perched atop a hill at a considerable distance. It was a dark night with a cloud-covered sky and no light around, not even a single lamp. I shuddered as I followed Alec and Steve into the woods. The walk was long and eerie. Eventually, we reached an overgrown lawn with several terraces rising one above the other. Nervously trailing Alec and Steve, we ascended the first and then the second terrace. The mansion loomed ominously in the darkness, and the wind rustled the trees and howled in the thick bushes. As we reached the upper terrace, Alec and Steve headed towards the mansion's back door, determined to get inside. I froze. Nothing could compel me to approach that eerie structure. Glancing at the third floor, the mansion's windows gaped like dark eyes. I trembled. Suddenly, a ball of light appeared in one of the windows. Astonished, I blinked, recalling Alec's claim of the mansion's abandonment. The light seemed to hover, transforming into a feminine figure before my astonished eyes. I gasped in shock. My heart pounded so hard I felt it might burst. I tore my gaze away, calling out to Alec. "Alec," I whispered urgently, "we need to leave, now." My tone penetrated his empty mind, and he and Steve headed towards me. As they caught up, I bolted, running so fast even an Olympian would envy me. I managed to start the engine and turn the car around by the time Steve and Alec reached the road. They jumped in, and I sped away. "You said the mansion was abandoned," I said accusingly. "It was and is," Alec replied. "Except for the killer nun," Steve chimed in from the back seat. "Killer nun," I exclaimed. "Of course," Steve said, leaning forward between the front seats, shifting his gaze from me to Alec. "Didn't Alec tell you about the mad Mother Superior who turned to paganism and murdered all her nun sisters when they refused to partake in her rituals?" She chopped them into bits, and their bodies were scattered throughout the mansion. When the police arrived, blood was everywhere. They say the ghost of the Mother Superior appears on the terrace at the back of the house. They say she tries to lure unsuspecting guests into the mansion to kill them. Shaking with fear, I dropped the guys off and returned home. The rest of the night, I dreamed of the glowing figure of the killer nun, chasing me across the terrace of the Italian mansion, wielding an axe. The summer heat was stifling when I decided to take a walk to the local lake. Time stretched slowly, as if nature itself was stuck in the sweltering air. The lake was calm, as if waiting for something unusual. I sat on the shore, watching the lazy waves gently lapping the sandy beach. Suddenly, in the mirrored calm of the water, I saw a reflection. It was like a shimmering ghost, gliding smoothly across the surface. My heart skipped a beat. Slowly, I raised my eyes, trying to make out something in the distance. But there was nothing to be seen. The lake seemed peaceful and tranquil. I sighed, trying to convince myself that it was just a trick of the light, something random. But when I looked back at the water, the reflection was still there. It seemed more distinct now, more real. I felt my breath catch in my throat, and my heart began to beat faster. There it was, the image I thought I saw. It was a monstrous figure. Its eyes glinted in the darkness, its teeth sharp as razors, and its dark body covered in scales, shimmering in the moonlight. I recoiled, trying to escape this horror, but my legs refused to obey me. They were like stone, and I felt my body turning to stone under the creature's gaze. I closed my eyes, hoping it was just a nightmare, and that when I opened them again, everything would return to normal. But when I opened my eyes again, the reflection was still there. Not only was it standing there, it was coming closer to me. The water stirred as if preparing to embrace it. I realized it wasn't my imagination, no illusion. It was reality, terrifying and incomprehensible. The creature approached closer and closer, its eyes sparkling in the darkness as if they could see into my soul. I realized I had nowhere to run. All my attempts to escape were futile. I was trapped, a prisoner of my own fear. A huge shadow fell over me as the creature emerged from the water. Its body was even more terrifying than I imagined. It was tall and muscular, its claws long and sharp, and its mouth full of sharp teeth. I realized this was the end. My life was over, and I was ready to accept my fate. But then, like a prayer, I heard a sound. It was the sound of an engine. It cut through the silence of the night, piercing the darkness. The creature turned, its eyes gleaming from the headlights. It let out a fierce roar and lunged toward the sound. When the headlights illuminated the shore, I saw people on a boat. They were hunters, their guns aimed directly at the creature. Gunshots rang out, tearing through the night air, and the creature disappeared into the water with the same terrifying roar. I lay on the shore, trembling with fear and exhaustion. The hunters had saved me from death, but a scar remained in my soul that would never heal. I realized that the world is full of mysteries and dangers, and that around every corner may lurk something terrifying, ready to destroy you at any moment.